Cristine, an aspiring artist, is emotionally fragile after a devastating breakup. She feels lost, drifting through life with little direction until she receives news of an unexpected inheritance, an old mansion from her estranged grandmother. Cristine barely knew her, having only visited the mansion once as a child, but the offer comes at the perfect time. Looking for a fresh start, she packs her belongings and moves to the mansion, which is nestled in the foggy hills on the outskirts of a small, quiet town. Upon arriving, the house immediately feels unsettling. Its towering frame looms over the dense forest, almost as though it is waiting for her. The mansion is eerily still, the windows dark, with peeling paint and ivy crawling up the walls. Inside, it's even worse. Dust coats every surface, and the air smells of damp wood and decay. Yet, despite the eerie atmosphere, Cristine feels a strange pull to the house, as if it's calling to her. That night, after unpacking and settling into the grand but creaky old bedroom, Cristine lies in bed, trying to convince herself that everything will be fine. However, as midnight approaches, strange noises begin to echo through the halls. Faint footsteps, soft whispers, and the sound of something dragging across the floor all seem to come from the upper floors. At first, Cristine dismisses it as the wind or old house noises, but then she hears something unmistakable, faint laughter, as though someone else is inside the house. Her heart pounds in her chest as she creeps down the long hallway, holding her phone as a makeshift flashlight. She finds nothing, but the eerie feeling that someone or something is watching her never leaves. The next day, Cristine tries to brush off the strange noises from the night before, telling herself it was just her mind playing tricks. She begins exploring the mansion in the daylight, hoping to find inspiration for her art. The place is a treasure trove of history. Old books, antique furniture, and family heirlooms fill every room. However, one discovery stands out above the rest: a large, dust-covered portrait hanging in the attic. The portrait depicts a handsome man from another era, dressed in elegant Victorian attire. His eyes seem to follow Cristine as she moves around the room, and she can't shake the feeling that she's seen him before. His striking features and deep, piercing gaze stir something inside her, a sense of familiarity, almost as if she's known him in another life. That night, Cristine dreams about the man in the portrait. In her dream, she's walking through the mansion in a long, flowing dress, and the man is beside her, smiling lovingly. He calls her by a name she doesn't recognize, Eleanor. She wakes abruptly, drenched in sweat, and notices something chilling: a cold handprint on her wrist. It feels so real that she checks the doors and windows, but they're all locked. The handprint fades within minutes, leaving her shaken and confused. Over the next few days, the atmosphere in the mansion becomes increasingly oppressive. Cristine begins hearing strange, disembodied whispers that seem to come from the walls, calling her name. Shadows flicker in the corners of her vision, but when she turns to look, nothing is there. Doors open and close on their own, and objects are mysteriously moved from where she last placed them. At night, the sounds of footsteps and whispers become louder, making it impossible for her to sleep. As the strange occurrences escalate, Cristine becomes obsessed with the portrait of the man. She feels an inexplicable connection to him, as though their fates are intertwined. Desperate for answers, she visits the town's library and digs into the history of the mansion. There, she discovers a chilling story. Over a century ago, the mansion belonged to a wealthy family, and a man named Gabriel, who bears a striking resemblance to the man in the portrait, was engaged to be married to a woman named Jasmine. However, just days before their wedding, Gabriel was found dead under mysterious circumstances, his body discovered in one of the mansion's upper rooms. His death was ruled a murder, but the culprit was never caught. To make matters worse, his fiancée Jasmine vanished shortly after his death, and rumors spread that she had been involved in dark, forbidden practices. The townspeople believed the mansion was cursed, and the tragic love story became a local legend. Cristine is disturbed but also intrigued. Could Gabriel be the man in her dreams? And what happened to Jasmine? One stormy evening, as the wind howls outside and the rain beats against the windows, Cristine hears a distinct knock at her door. Her heart races, but when she opens it, no one is there. She steps into the dark hallway, feeling an overwhelming sense of dread, and that's when she sees him, Gabriel. He stands at the end of the hallway, dressed just as he was in the portrait, his expression solemn. At first, Cristine thinks she's dreaming, but the cold chill in the air and the static hum of energy around him tell her this is no dream. Gabriel speaks, his voice soft and haunting, warning her that the mansion is not safe. He tells her that something evil lurks within its walls, something that feeds off of the living and traps souls like his. Cristine, despite the fear coursing through her, can't help but feel drawn to Gabriel. There's an undeniable connection between them, as though their souls recognize each other. Gabriel explains that he's been trapped in the mansion since his death, unable to move on because the truth behind his murder has never been uncovered. His spirit is bound to the house, and now that Cristine is here, the malevolent force in the mansion is growing stronger, feeding off her presence. Though Gabriel urges her to leave, Cristine can't bring herself to abandon him. She feels compelled to stay, not only to help him, but because of the powerful, almost magnetic bond she feels toward him. As the storm rages outside, Gabriel disappears as quickly as he appeared, leaving Cristine alone in the hallway, her mind racing with questions. From that moment, Gabriel begins to appear to Cristine more frequently, his presence both comforting and terrifying. The mansion, however, becomes more dangerous. Cristine starts to see disturbing visions, glimpses of Jasmine, dark rituals, and ominous symbols scrawled on the walls. The entity within the mansion is becoming restless, and Cristine realizes that if she wants to uncover the truth and free Gabriel, she will have to confront the dark past of the house, as well as the evil that still lingers there. After the encounter with Gabriel, Cristine is consumed by her fascination with him. She finds herself eagerly awaiting his appearances, her fear gradually transforming into a strange affection. In the weeks that follow, Gabriel begins to share more of his past with her. He tells her about his life before his untimely death, how he was once a well-known figure in the town, a wealthy landowner who was engaged to a beautiful woman named Jasmine. But as Gabriel reveals more details, Cristine notices inconsistencies in his story. His memories are fragmented, and sometimes his recollections of Jasmine seem distant, almost forced. While he speaks fondly of her, Cristine can sense a lingering sadness in his voice, as if he's not telling the whole truth. Cristine's attraction to Gabriel deepens with every passing day. She knows it's irrational to fall in love with a ghost, but Gabriel feels so real to her. His presence is comforting amidst the mansion's growing darkness, and he seems to genuinely care for her safety. Yet Cristine's dreams of Jasmine become more frequent, and they're increasingly disturbing. She sees flashes of Jasmine's face, pale, gaunt, with hollow eyes, and her dreams are filled with eerie laughter, shadowy figures, and cryptic symbols that she cannot understand. One night, Gabriel appears at Cristine's bedside, watching her sleep. This time, he seems more solid, more tangible than ever before. He sits on the edge of her bed, brushing a strand of hair from her face. His touch is cold but not unpleasant, and Cristine feels a surge of emotions she hasn't experienced in a long time. Longing, desire, and an overwhelming need to be close to him. But just as she reaches for him, his form flickers and his expression darkens. "You must leave," he whispers. "The longer you stay, the more it wants you." Despite the warning, Cristine can't bring herself to leave the mansion or Gabriel. There's a part of her that feels like she's meant to be here, like she's connected to this place and its dark history in ways she can't yet understand. And then, one night, as Cristine is sketching in the parlor, she notices something strange about the portrait of Gabriel she had found earlier. Beneath the layers of dust, hidden in the intricate details of the frame, is a symbol, the same one she's been seeing in her dreams. As Cristine studies the symbol from the portrait, a chill runs down her spine. The more she examines it, the more she realizes it's not just a random design. It's a sigil, an ancient mark of protection and also of binding. She suspects it's connected to the dark forces lurking within the mansion. Her thoughts are interrupted by a soft knock on the door, but when she opens it, no one is there. Instead, a thick fog rolls into the hallway, swirling around her feet as the temperature drops dramatically. That's when the haunting intensifies. Cristine begins experiencing even more terrifying occurrences. Objects fly across rooms, cold spots form in corners, and disturbing messages are scrawled across mirrors in what looks like blood. Each message is cryptic, hinting at a sacrifice, and they all end with the same phrase, "She is coming." The house feels like it's alive, breathing, its very walls groaning with malice. One night, as Cristine walks through the hallway, she catches a glimpse of Jasmine in the mirror, standing right behind her, staring with hollow, sunken eyes. Cristine whirls around, but there's no one there. Jasmine's ghostly figure becomes a regular visitor, appearing in mirrors, reflections, and shadows. Each time she appears, the air grows heavier, and the malevolent presence in the mansion strengthens. Gabriel warns Cristine that Jasmine is part of the darkness tied to the house, and that whatever force is controlling her is dangerous. He confesses that he doesn't fully understand what happened to Jasmine after his death, but he fears she's become part of the malevolent entity that now haunts the mansion. As he speaks, his voice trembles with guilt. Cristine begins to question the true nature of Jasmine's disappearance. Was she a victim of the dark entity, or had she willingly given herself over to it? The more Cristine learns, the more she feels like she's caught in a web of lies, half-truths, and long-buried secrets. Driven by her need to uncover the truth, Cristine throws herself into researching the mansion's dark history. She scours the local library, visits old archives, and even consults with a local historian who specializes in the occult. She learns that the mansion has long been associated with strange, unexplainable events, and that Gabriel's death wasn't the only tragedy linked to the house. There are records of other mysterious deaths and disappearances, all centered around the mansion's previous owners. As Cristine pieces together the puzzle, she discovers that the mansion was once home to a secret society, a cult that practiced dark magic and ritual sacrifices. The symbol she found in the portrait is linked to this cult, and it was used to trap and bind souls. The more she uncovers, the more dangerous her investigation becomes. The mansion reacts violently to her discoveries, with the paranormal activity escalating to physical attacks, shattered windows, violent poltergeist activity, and unexplained cuts appearing on Cristine's body. One night, she's thrown down a flight of stairs by an unseen force, barely managing to escape with her life. Despite the increasing danger, Cristine refuses to give up. She realizes that the dark entity in the house isn't just any spirit. It's something far more ancient, a malevolent force that feeds on fear, suffering, and death. And somehow, Jasmine is connected to it. Cristine's research reveals that Jasmine might have willingly joined the cult, sacrificing her humanity to gain eternal power. This revelation shakes Cristine to her core. Was Jasmine a victim, or was she a willing participant in the evil that now haunts the mansion? Gabriel, for his part, grows more distant. His form flickers in and out of reality, and his connection to the living world seems to be weakening. Cristine realizes that the mansion's malevolent force is growing stronger, and if she doesn't act soon, Gabriel will be lost forever. But the more she digs, the more the house fights back, trying to break her will, to drive her away before she uncovers the truth. The truth finally begins to unravel when Cristine finds a hidden journal, tucked away in a secret compartment in the mansion's library. The journal belonged to Jasmine, and it details her descent into darkness. What Cristine reads horrifies her. Jasmine had once been deeply in love with Gabriel, but after his mysterious death, she became consumed with grief and rage. The journal reveals that she joined the secret society not as a victim, but as a willing participant, seeking the power to bring Gabriel back from the dead. But the ritual Jasmine performed did not go as planned. Instead of resurrecting Gabriel, she inadvertently bound his spirit to the mansion, trapping him in a purgatorial state. Worse, the ritual summoned a dark, ancient force, an entity that feeds on souls and death. Jasmine, in her desperation, gave herself over to this entity, believing it would grant her the power to undo the curse. Instead, it claimed her, turning her into a twisted, malevolent spirit bound to the mansion for eternity. Cristine is devastated by this revelation. Jasmine's betrayal explains everything: the haunting, the darkness, and Gabriel's imprisonment. But the journal also holds a clue to breaking the curse. Cristine learns that the only way to free Gabriel is to perform a counter-ritual that requires a blood sacrifice, a willing heart to take Gabriel's place. As Cristine reads the final entry in the journal, the shadows in the mansion grow darker, and she feels the entity closing in on her. Jasmine's spirit appears again, this time more tangible and terrifying than ever. Her face is twisted with malice, and her voice is a cold whisper. "You will not free him. He is mine." Cristine realizes that the final battle between love and the dark forces controlling the mansion is about to begin. But as the malevolent entity grows stronger, Cristine must make a choice. Does she have the strength to face the darkness and risk her own life to save Gabriel, or will she succumb to the same fate as Jasmine? Cristine sits in the mansion's vast library, staring at the final page of Jasmine's journal, her mind racing with conflicting emotions. She knows what needs to be done. The counter-ritual must be performed to free Gabriel, but the price is blood. A willing heart. Her heart. The ancient entity that has bound Gabriel and corrupted Jasmine feeds on souls, and only a sacrifice can break the curse. The revelation weighs heavily on her, but even more disturbing is the sense of urgency. Gabriel's presence is fading, appearing less frequently and growing weaker with each encounter. The house, now fully alive with dark energy, pulses with malevolent intent. Cristine can feel it in the walls, in the very air she breathes. She's running out of time. Determined to save Gabriel, she prepares for the ritual. Over the next few days, she gathers the necessary ingredients mentioned in Jasmine's journal: candles, a ceremonial dagger, and specific herbs used in the occult rituals of the mansion's secret society. The symbols she's been seeing in her dreams, etched on walls and hidden in the portrait frame, are all part of the ritual. She must recreate them in the mansion's ballroom, the very room where Gabriel was murdered over a century ago. Cristine avoids sleep, haunted by increasingly violent dreams of Jasmine, who now torments her at every opportunity. In these dreams, Jasmine is no longer the beautiful woman she once was. Her features are decayed, twisted with hatred and jealousy. "You will not take him from me," she hisses in Cristine's ear, her voice a venomous snarl. The more Cristine prepares for the ritual, the more violent Jasmine's attacks become, both in her dreams and in the physical world. Objects fly off shelves, windows shatter, and once, Cristine is nearly suffocated by unseen hands in the dead of night. One evening, as Cristine is finalizing the ritual preparations, Gabriel appears to her again. He looks weaker than ever, his once vibrant form now flickering like a dying flame. His eyes are filled with sorrow, but also with love. He begs her to stop, to leave the mansion before it consumes her, but Cristine refuses. She can't abandon him, not after everything she's learned, and not after the feelings that have blossomed between them. "I would do anything for you," Cristine whispers, tears in her eyes. "Even give my life." Gabriel's face twists in agony. "I never wanted this for you. I've been trapped here for too long. I've forgotten what it means to live or to love. Don't sacrifice yourself for a ghost." But Cristine's mind is set. She has fallen in love with Gabriel, and she is willing to risk everything to free him, even if it means her own death. As Gabriel's form begins to fade once more, he reaches out to touch her face, his fingers cold and translucent. "Please be careful," he whispers before disappearing completely. The day of the ritual arrives, and Cristine is ready. The ballroom, once grand and elegant, is now a chamber of horrors. Dust and decay cover every surface, and the faint smell of blood lingers in the air. The floor is cracked and stained, remnants of the dark rituals once performed here by the secret society. Cristine places candles in a circle around her, their flames flickering eerily as she begins to draw the symbols on the floor with chalk. As the ritual nears its climax, the air grows thick with tension. The temperature drops, and Cristine can see her breath in the air as she recites the incantations from Jasmine's journal. Suddenly, the floor beneath her trembles, and the walls of the mansion groan as if the very foundation is coming alive. Shadows swirl around her, and the malevolent entity begins to manifest. But then, Cristine feels it, Jasmine's presence. The room fills with a freezing wind, and the candles blow out, plunging Cristine into darkness. Jasmine's ghost materializes before her, her form twisted and grotesque, her eyes burning with fury. "You think you can take him from me?" Jasmine snarls, her voice echoing unnaturally. "He is mine. He has always been mine." Cristine stands her ground, trembling but determined. "He doesn't belong to you, Jasmine. You trapped him here. You bound him to this nightmare. If you ever loved him, you would let him go." Jasmine's face contorts in rage, and with a wave of her hand, the room erupts in chaos. The walls crack and shift, the floor beneath Cristine crumbling as dark tendrils rise from the shadows, trying to pull her under. Cristine struggles to stay on her feet, her heart pounding as Jasmine advances on her. But Cristine isn't the same scared woman she was when she first arrived at the mansion. She has grown stronger, more determined. She holds up the ceremonial dagger and speaks the final words of the incantation. The room shakes violently as the power of the ritual takes hold. Jasmine screams, her body flickering like a broken image, as if being torn between two worlds. "No!" she shrieks, her voice filled with agony. "I will not let you take him from me." With one final, guttural scream, Jasmine vanishes, but not before leaving Cristine with a chilling warning. "This isn't over. You will never be rid of me." As Jasmine's presence fades, the room falls deathly silent. Cristine is left standing alone in the center of the ballroom, her body trembling from the exertion of the ritual. The dark tendrils that had been trying to pull her under recede, and the mansion, for the first time, feels eerily still. Cristine knows that the ritual is almost complete, but the final step remains, the blood sacrifice. She takes a deep breath and kneels in the center of the symbol she had drawn on the floor, the ceremonial dagger glinting in her hand. Her heart races, but her resolve is unwavering. To free Gabriel, to break the curse, she must offer her life willingly. But before she can make the final cut, Gabriel appears before her, more solid than he's ever been. His eyes are wide with horror as he sees what she's about to do. "Cristine, stop!" he cries, rushing toward her. "I won't let you do this." Cristine's heart aches at the sight of him. He looks so real, so alive, and yet she knows that if she doesn't complete the ritual, he will be lost forever, trapped in the mansion's hellish grip for eternity. Tears stream down her face as she looks up at him. "I have to," she whispers. "It's the only way to free you." Gabriel shakes his head, his voice breaking. "Not like this. I can't let you sacrifice yourself for me. You deserve to live, to be free. Please, Cristine, don't do this." For a moment, Cristine hesitates, her heart torn between her love for Gabriel and her desire to save him. But then she remembers the journal, the dark history of the mansion, and the pain that Gabriel has endured for so long. She can't bear the thought of him being trapped here forever, suffering alone. "I love you," Cristine whispers, her voice trembling, and with that, she raises the dagger to her chest. But just as she's about to plunge it into her heart, a blinding light fills the room. The dark energy surrounding the mansion recoils, and the malevolent entity lets out a deafening roar. The light intensifies, and Cristine feels a force pulling her back, away from the dagger. In the midst of the chaos, Gabriel steps forward, his form glowing with an ethereal light. "No more sacrifices," he says, his voice calm and resolute. "This ends now." Cristine watches in awe as Gabriel raises his hand, and the light from within him grows brighter, pushing back the darkness. The entity howls in fury as it is forced out of the mansion, its grip on Gabriel and the house shattered. When the light finally fades, Cristine finds herself lying on the ballroom floor, gasping for breath. The mansion is silent once more, but this time, the oppressive weight of the darkness is gone. The air feels lighter, as if the curse has been lifted. Cristine slowly sits up, her body aching from the ordeal, and looks around for Gabriel, but he's gone. Panic floods her as she realizes that the ritual may have taken him after all. "Gabriel!" she cries, her voice echoing in the empty room. But then, she hears a familiar voice behind her. Cristine. She turns to see Gabriel standing in the doorway, fully alive, no longer a ghostly figure bound to the mansion. His skin is warm, his eyes filled with emotion. He smiles at her, a smile that is filled with both relief and love. "You did it," he says softly. "We're free." Cristine rushes to him, her heart swelling with joy and disbelief. She wraps her arms around him, feeling the warmth of his body for the first time. It's real. He's real. They're both alive. As they stand together in the center of the ballroom, Cristine realizes that the mansion no longer holds power over them. The darkness has been banished, and Jasmine's spirit, along with the malevolent entity, is gone for good. Gabriel takes Cristine's hand, his touch no longer cold and ghostly, but warm and full of life. "Let's leave this place," he says softly, "together." And for the first time since she arrived at the mansion, Cristine feels at peace. The nightmare is over, and a new chapter of their lives is about to begin. Together, they step out of the mansion and into the light of a new dawn, leaving the horrors of the past behind them. But as they walk away, neither of them notices the faint figure watching from one of the upper windows, the shadowy silhouette of a woman with hollow eyes, watching, waiting. Cristine and Gabriel walk hand in hand, leaving the mansion and its cursed history behind. The weight of their ordeal still lingers, but they take comfort in the light of the sun and the open road ahead. The small village they arrive at seems like the perfect place to start over. Its picturesque cottages, friendly faces, and peaceful atmosphere feel worlds away from the horrors they've endured. The innkeeper welcomes them warmly, offering them a room in the back with a view of the forest. For the first time in what feels like ages, Cristine feels safe. She and Gabriel fall into an easy routine. Breakfast in the village square, long walks in the woods, quiet evenings by the fire. Life is calm, predictable. But beneath the surface, Cristine can't shake the feeling that something is wrong. Despite the tranquility of the village, Cristine finds herself plagued by a growing sense of unease. Every night, the mansion appears in her dreams, its looming silhouette standing against a stormy sky. She hears the echo of Jasmine's voice, faint and distant, but unmistakable, "I'm still here." Gabriel, on the other hand, seems at peace. He reassures Cristine whenever she expresses her fears, brushing them off as the aftermath of trauma. "We've been through hell, Cristine," he tells her one evening as they sit by the fire. "It's normal to have bad dreams, but that place can't hurt us anymore." Cristine nods, but she's not convinced. Every day the dreams grow stronger, more vivid, and then one night, everything changes. It's well past midnight when Cristine is jolted awake by a strange sound. She sits up in bed, her heart racing. The room is dark, lit only by the faint glow of the moon through the curtains. For a moment, she thinks it was just a dream, another vision of the mansion intruding on her sleep. But then she hears it again, the soft, distant sound of whispering. Cristine's blood runs cold. She carefully slips out of bed, trying not to wake Gabriel. The whispering grows louder as she approaches the window. With trembling hands, she pulls back the curtains and peers out into the night. Her breath catches in her throat. Far off in the distance, beyond the peaceful village, she can see the mansion. It stands just as it did before, its shadow stretching out toward her, oppressive and dark. And in one of the upper windows, she sees a figure, a woman, standing still and silent, watching her. It's Jasmine. Cristine stumbles back from the window, her heart pounding in her chest. She can't believe what she's seeing. Jasmine was gone, her spirit destroyed when the mansion crumbled. But here she is, as clear as day, staring at Cristine as if waiting for her. "Gabriel," Cristine whispers, shaking him awake. "Gabriel, it's Jasmine." She's still here. Gabriel groans and rubs his eyes, still half asleep. What are you talking about? Cristine pulls him toward the window, her voice trembling. Look, she's watching us, Gabriel. The mansion, it's still there. Gabriel looks out the window, his expression growing serious. But where Cristine sees the mansion looming in the distance, Gabriel sees only darkness, the faint outlines of trees in the moonlight. There's nothing there, Cristine, he says softly, turning to her. It's just your mind playing tricks on you. You've been through so much. Maybe it's time we got some help. Someone to talk to. Cristine shakes her head violently. No, I know what I saw. The mansion is still there, and so is Jasmine. The nightmare isn't over, Gabriel. It's only just beginning. The days that follow are a blur of confusion and dread. Cristine tries to convince herself that it's all in her head, that the mansion is truly gone and she's only seeing things. But every night, the whispers return, growing louder and more insistent. Jasmine's figure appears more frequently now, always watching from the same window. It's as if the mansion is calling to her, pulling her back into its dark grasp. Gabriel grows increasingly concerned. He tries everything to ease Cristine's fears, taking her for long walks, distracting her with stories and laughter, even making plans to move to another town. But no matter how hard he tries, the shadow of the mansion looms large over their lives. One evening, as the sun sets over the village, Cristine decides to go for a walk alone, hoping the fresh air will clear her mind. She walks through the village streets, past the little cottages and the market square, until she finds herself standing at the edge of the woods. That's when she sees her, an elderly woman standing just beyond the tree line, her long, tattered dress blowing in the wind. Her eyes are sharp and piercing, fixed on Cristine as if she knows exactly who she is. You can't escape it, the woman says in a low, raspy voice. The mansion will always find you. Cristine's breath catches in her throat. She takes a step back, her heart racing. Who are you? The woman smiles, a cold, eerie smile that sends a chill down Cristine's spine. It doesn't matter who I am, she says. What matters is that the curse is not broken. The mansion, now, just as Gabriel once was. You didn't destroy her. You only released her spirit from her human form. But her essence is still tied to the house, and it won't rest until you return. Cristine feels a wave of nausea wash over her. She turns and runs back to the inn, her mind racing. Could it be true? Could the ritual have failed? Is Jasmine still bound to the mansion, waiting for her to come back? When she reaches the inn, Gabriel is waiting for her, his face etched with worry. Cristine, where were you? I was getting worried. Cristine collapses into his arms, her voice shaking. We have to go back, Gabriel. The mansion, it's still calling to us. Against Gabriel's better judgment, they make the decision to return to the mansion. Cristine is adamant that they must confront whatever dark forces still linger there. She's convinced that only by facing the truth head-on can they finally break free of the mansion's curse. They pack their things and set out at dawn, walking through the woods in silence. The closer they get to the mansion, the more oppressive the atmosphere becomes. The trees seem to close in around them, and the air grows thick with an unnatural chill. When they finally reach the mansion's grounds, Cristine feels a wave of dread wash over her. The mansion looks exactly as it did when they left it, dark, brooding, and full of malice. The front door creaks open on its own, as if inviting them inside. Cristine hesitates for a moment, but then, with Gabriel by her side, she steps over the threshold. The interior of the mansion is cold and silent. Dust hangs heavy in the air, and the floorboards groan under their weight. As they make their way through the familiar halls, Cristine feels a growing sense of urgency, as if the mansion itself is pushing them toward something. When they reach the ballroom, everything falls into place. Standing in the center of the room is Jasmine, her figure ghostly and ethereal, but her eyes burning with hatred. You didn't think you could escape me, did you? Jasmine sneers, her voice echoing off the walls. You thought you could destroy me, but I am the mansion. I am eternal." Gabriel steps forward, his fists clenched. "We defeated you once, Jasmine. We'll do it again." Jasmine laughs, a cold, hollow sound. "You're fools. The mansion's curse is more powerful than you can imagine. You'll never be free." As the room darkens and the walls close in, Cristine realizes the truth. The mansion was never just a house. It was alive, a malevolent force feeding on the souls of those who entered, and now it wanted hers. But Cristine won't give in. Gripping the book Mrs. Kavanaugh had given her, she begins to recite the words of the final ritual. The air crackles with energy as the mansion resists, but Cristine's voice grows louder, more powerful, until the walls themselves begin to tremble. Jasmine screams, her form flickering and fading as the ritual takes hold. The mansion groans and shudders, its dark energy collapsing in on itself. With a final burst of light, Jasmine's spirit is consumed, and the mansion crumbles into nothingness. Cristine and Gabriel barely make it out before the entire structure collapses into dust. They stand in silence, watching as the nightmare that had haunted them for so long is finally reduced to rubble. For the first time, Cristine feels truly free. But even as they walk away, the faint whisper of Jasmine's voice lingers in the air, reminding them that some nightmares never truly end. Cristine and Gabriel stand amidst the rubble of the mansion, watching the last tendrils of smoke rise into the overcast sky. The once towering structure is now nothing more than a heap of broken stones and splintered wood, reduced to ruins by the power of the final ritual. For the first time in weeks, Cristine feels a sense of relief wash over her, a lightness in her chest that she hasn't felt since the nightmares began. "It's over," she whispers, as if saying the words aloud will make them real. Gabriel, standing beside her, nods. He pulls her close, wrapping his arms around her as they stand in the quiet aftermath. The world around them is eerily silent. No birds sing, no breeze stirs the trees. It's as though the land itself is holding its breath, waiting for something. But Cristine brushes the thought aside. They have escaped the mansion's dark grasp, and now they can finally start fresh. Or so she thinks. The following days are a strange mix of peace and unease. Cristine and Gabriel move to a small coastal village miles away from the site of the mansion. They find a quaint cottage overlooking the sea, with a view of the horizon that stretches endlessly. The air here is different, clean, fresh, free from the oppressive weight of the haunted mansion. It should be perfect. It should feel like a new beginning. And yet, something gnaws at the back of Cristine's mind. The first few nights in the cottage are peaceful. Cristine sleeps without dreams, waking each morning to the sound of the waves crashing against the shore. Gabriel seems to relax too, throwing himself into repairing the old house, determined to make it their new home. For the first time since they met, they talk about the future, about building a life together, far from the horrors of their past. But Cristine can't shake the feeling that they're being watched. It starts as a flicker of movement in the corner of her eye, a shadow that seems to dart behind a tree or vanish around a corner just as she turns. She tells herself it's nothing, just her nerves playing tricks on her after everything she's been through. But the feeling only grows stronger. Then, one night, she hears it. It's well past midnight when Cristine is jolted awake by the sound of footsteps outside the cottage. At first, she thinks it's just Gabriel moving around. But when she rolls over, she sees him fast asleep beside her, his breathing deep, and shudders, its dark energy collapsing in on itself. With a final burst of light, Jasmine's spirit is consumed, and the mansion crumbles into nothingness. Cristine and Gabriel barely make it out before the entire structure collapses and steady. Her heart pounds as she sits up in bed, straining to listen. The footsteps are slow, deliberate, crunching against the gravel path that leads to the front door. They stop just outside the window, and for a moment, Cristine holds her breath, afraid to move. Suddenly, there's a soft knock at the door. Cristine's blood runs cold. Who would be out here at this hour? The village is quiet at night, the streets empty after sundown. She glances at the clock, 3:12 a.m. No one should be visiting now. She slips out of bed and tiptoes to the window, her pulse racing. With trembling hands, she pulls the curtain aside just enough to peek out. At first, she sees nothing, just the dark outline of the garden, the path leading down to the shore. But then, out of the corner of her eye, she catches a glimpse of movement. A figure stands in the distance, just at the edge of the garden. It's a woman, tall, with long, flowing hair that seems to shimmer in the moonlight. She's wearing a pale, flowing gown, her face hidden in shadow. For a moment, Cristine's heart stops. The figure looks so familiar, so disturbingly familiar. Jasmine. Cristine gasps and stumbles back from the window, her hands shaking. It can't be. Jasmine is gone. She was destroyed along with the mansion. This has to be a trick. Her mind playing tricks on her again, just like it did before. But the footsteps, the knocking, those were real. Gabriel stirs in bed, his brow furrowing as he wakes. Cristine? What's wrong? Cristine doesn't answer at first, her mind racing. She doesn't want to scare him, doesn't want to tell him that the nightmare they thought they had escaped is far from over. But the look on her face must say it all, because Gabriel is out of bed in an instant, his eyes scanning the room for danger. What is it? Did you see something? Cristine swallows hard, her voice barely a whisper. It's her, Gabriel. She's back. The knock comes again, louder this time, more insistent. Gabriel freezes, his face paling. He moves to the door, but Cristine grabs his arm, shaking her head frantically. Don't open it, she pleads. It's Jasmine. I saw her. Gabriel hesitates, his hand inches from the doorknob. He glances back at Cristine, torn between disbelief and fear. Cristine, the mansion is gone. Jasmine's gone. It can't be her. I know what I saw, she insists. She's out there, waiting. Another knock, this time accompanied by a voice, soft, melodic, but cold as ice. Cristine. Gabriel, let me in. Gabriel's face goes ashen. He pulls away from the door and takes Cristine's hand. We're leaving, he says firmly. We're not staying here. But as they turn to leave the room, the door bursts open with a loud crash, slamming against the wall. The temperature in the room plummets, the air growing so cold Cristine can see her breath. Shadows slither across the floor, pooling together in the shape of a woman, Jasmine. Her form is more solid now, more defined than the last time Cristine saw her in the mansion. But there's something different about her. The malice in her eyes is more intense, her expression twisted with rage. You thought you could escape me, Jasmine says, her voice echoing unnaturally in the small room. But you were wrong. I am bound to you, Cristine. You can't outrun me. Gabriel steps in front of Cristine, his stance protective, but Jasmine barely glances at him. Her focus is entirely on Cristine, as if Gabriel no longer matters. This is your fault, Jasmine hisses. You tried to break the curse, but all you did was seal it deeper. You are mine, Cristine. You will always be mine. Cristine's heart pounds in her chest. The terror she felt in the mansion returns in full force, gripping her like a vice. She knows Jasmine isn't lying. The ritual didn't banish her. It merely trapped her essence, binding it to Cristine like a parasite feeding on her life force. Gabriel reaches for the book, the same one they used to perform the ritual in the mansion. But before he can open it, Jasmine's figure flickers and shifts. In the blink of an eye, she's beside him, her hand wrapped around his throat. Gabriel! Cristine screams, rushing forward, but a barrier of cold air forces her back. Jasmine lifts Gabriel off the ground effortlessly, her eyes glowing with dark energy. You can't save him, Cristine, Jasmine says, her voice venomous. No one can save you. But Cristine isn't ready to give up. Summoning every ounce of courage she has left, she grabs the book from Gabriel's hands and begins to chant the words of the ritual. The air around them begins to shimmer, the shadows twisting and writhing as Jasmine screams in fury. No! Jasmine shrieks, her grip on Gabriel loosening as the power of the ritual takes hold. Cristine's voice grows louder, stronger, as the words flow from her lips. With one final, ear-splitting scream, Jasmine's form dissolves into mist, her shadowy figure disintegrating before their eyes. The cold air lifts, and the cottage falls silent. Cristine drops the book, her hands trembling, her heart still racing. Gabriel, gasping for breath, pulls her into his arms. "It's over," he whispers, though his voice carries the same doubt that lingers in Cristine's heart. They may have banished Jasmine once more, but Cristine knows, deep down, that it's not truly over. The shadows of the mansion still cling to her, and until she finds a way to fully break the curse, Jasmine will always return. Outside, the wind howls, carrying with it the faintest whisper of a voice Cristine hoped never to hear again. "I'll be back?" And so the nightmare begins again. After that harrowing night, Cristine and Gabriel stand frozen in the aftermath of Jasmine's latest attack. Though she has seemingly been banished once again, Cristine can still feel her presence, like a shadow lurking just beyond the veil of reality. Her heart pounds as Gabriel leads her back to the bed, but sleep is the last thing on her mind. Jasmine's threat, "I'll be back," echoes endlessly in her thoughts. The next morning brings little relief. The sun shines brightly over the quiet coastal village, casting long golden rays through the windows of their cottage. It's a beautiful day, one that would have otherwise brought comfort. But there's something wrong with the light today, something that makes Cristine uneasy. It's as if the sun's warmth can't reach her, as though she's trapped in a perpetual state of cold, no matter how hard she tries to shake it off. Gabriel remains silent for most of the morning. His usual easy confidence has been replaced with an air of dread, and Cristine can see the doubt flickering behind his eyes. For the first time, he looks genuinely scared. The power Jasmine wields is more dangerous than they ever realized. "We can't stay here," Gabriel finally says, breaking the silence as they sit down for breakfast. "The village isn't safe anymore. Not with Jasmine still tied to you." Cristine doesn't argue. The constant fear gnawing at her gut tells her he's right. But the question remains, where can they go? If Jasmine is bound to Cristine, it won't matter where they run. Jasmine will always find her. Cristine stares down at her plate, her appetite gone. "What do we do, Gabriel? How do we stop her for good?" Gabriel exhales deeply, rubbing his hands over his face. "I don't know," he admits. "The ritual should have worked. We should have ended her." His voice carries the same frustration Cristine feels. They followed every step, every instruction in the book Mrs. Kavanaugh gave them. But nothing they do seems to sever the connection between Cristine and Jasmine. The mansion is gone, but Jasmine's presence lingers, feeding off the bond between them. Gabriel pushes away from the table, pacing the small kitchen. "Maybe there's something we missed," he says, his mind racing. "Something deeper. Something tied to her history, to the mansion itself." Cristine frowns. The mansion had always been an enigma, a place steeped in darkness, with layers upon layers of secrets. They'd uncovered some of those secrets, but perhaps not enough. Maybe there was something buried deeper in its past, something that would explain why Jasmine couldn't be destroyed. "I think we need to learn more about Jasmine," Cristine says slowly. "About her past. Maybe there's something in her life, something she was tied to before she became part of the mansion, something we overlooked." Gabriel stops pacing, considering her words. "You're right. There has to be more. We've been so focused on the mansion, but maybe Jasmine's connection to it isn't the only thing binding her. Maybe it's her past that's keeping her here." That afternoon, they leave the cottage and head to the nearest library, a dusty old building tucked away at the far edge of the village. Cristine feels a strange sense of urgency as they enter, as if time is running out and the window to stop Jasmine is slowly closing. They pore over records for hours, digging into old archives, books on local legends, and any historical documents they can find related to the mansion and the area surrounding it. Gabriel focuses on records about the mansion itself, its previous owners, its construction, and any history of strange occurrences tied to the property. Meanwhile, Cristine dives into anything she can find on Jasmine. The further they dig, the more pieces of Jasmine's life begin to fall into place. Jasmine wasn't just any woman. She came from a long line of women who were believed to possess supernatural abilities. She grew up in a small, isolated village not far from the mansion, a village known for its secretive nature and strange practices. Local rumors whispered that her mother had been a powerful witch, feared and respected by the people around her. Jasmine had inherited her mother's gifts, but had used them for darker purposes. Cristine's heart pounds as she reads through the accounts of Jasmine's early life. It becomes clear that Jasmine had been a manipulative, vengeful woman, using her powers to control those around her, seeking revenge on anyone who crossed her. It was said that she had cursed several people in her lifetime, binding their souls to the land, ensuring they could never move on in death. The mansion itself had been a place of power for her, a location that amplified her dark magic, allowing her to trap the souls of anyone who dared enter. This explains so much, Cristine whispers to herself, flipping through the brittle pages of an old journal. She wasn't just tied to the mansion, she was a part of it. Her power was in its foundation. Gabriel looks up from his own research, his expression grim. She's been binding people to the land for centuries. She didn't just want revenge, she wanted control, and the mansion gave her that. Cristine bites her lip, dread pooling in her stomach. If Jasmine had that kind of power, it meant the ritual they performed in the mansion wasn't enough. They had destroyed the physical structure, but Jasmine's curse was woven into the very fabric of the land. It wouldn't be broken by simply tearing down walls. There's more, Gabriel says, his voice tight. I found records of a ritual, a more powerful one than the one we performed. It's an exorcism of sorts, but it requires sacrifices. Cristine's heart skips a beat. What kind of sacrifices? Gabriel hesitates, his gaze dropping to the floor. Human sacrifices. Souls, to be exact. It was a dark ritual that Jasmine performed to strengthen her power, but it was also the key to undoing the curse. If we want to sever her connection to you, we'll need to perform it, and it won't be easy. Cristine's mind races. Human sacrifices? The idea sends a chill down her spine, but she knows they're running out of options. Jasmine is growing stronger with each passing day, and if they don't act soon, she'll find a way to fully manifest again. Is there any other way? She asks, desperation in her voice. Gabriel shakes his head. This is the only record of a ritual strong enough to break her hold. But we don't have to sacrifice anyone. The souls in the mansion, those who were trapped, they might still be lingering. We can use them. Cristine's stomach turns at the thought, but she knows Gabriel is right. The souls Jasmine bound to the mansion may be the only way to stop her. If they can free those souls, it might be enough to break the curse once and for all. Cristine and Gabriel leave the library with a plan, but their hearts are heavy. The idea of using the trapped souls to defeat Jasmine weighs on them, but it's the only option they have left. They'll have to return to the site of the mansion, to the place where the souls were bound, and call them forth. As they drive back toward the ruins of the mansion, the sky darkens with ominous clouds. The air grows thick with tension, and Cristine feels a sense of foreboding settling over her. She knows this will be their final confrontation with Jasmine, and it won't be easy. When they arrive at the site, the ground is still littered with the debris of the mansion's collapse. But the energy here has changed. It's darker now, more hostile. The wind howls through the trees, carrying with it the faint whispers of the souls trapped beneath the earth. Gabriel sets up the ritual circle, carefully laying out the materials they brought from the library. Cristine watches him work, her heart pounding in her chest. The weight of what they're about to do presses down on her, but she pushes her fear aside. This is their only chance to stop Jasmine, to break the curse that has haunted them for so long. As Gabriel finishes the circle, the wind picks up, swirling around them with increasing intensity. Cristine closes her eyes and begins to chant the words of the ritual, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. The ground beneath their feet begins to tremble, and the air fills with the sound of distant cries. voices of the souls Jasmine had trapped. Slowly, ghostly figures begin to emerge from the shadows, their faces twisted in pain and suffering. Cristine's heart aches for them. These are the souls Jasmine has bound for centuries, trapped in eternal torment. But they also represent hope. Their release could be the key to breaking Jasmine's power. As the ritual progresses, the air grows colder, and a dark figure appears on the horizon. Jasmine. Her form is more solid now, her face twisted. With fury. "You think you can defeat me?" she snarls, her voice reverberating through the air. "You are nothing compared to my power." But Cristine doesn't falter. She continues the chant, her voice growing louder as the trapped souls begin to circle around them. Jasmine screams in rage, her form flickering as the power of the ritual takes hold. Gabriel steps forward, his voice steady as he joins Cristine in the chant. Together, their voices rise, calling forth the final words of the ritual. With one final, deafening scream, Jasmine's form is torn apart, her essence dissolving into the air as the souls she had trapped are released. The wind dies down, and the ground falls still. Cristine collapses to her knees, gasping for breath. It's over. Jasmine is gone. The curse is broken. But as she looks up at Gabriel, she realizes with a sinking feeling that something is wrong. The sky, once dark with storm clouds, remains shadowed, and in the distance, Cristine hears a faint whisper. "You can't escape me." And the darkness stirs once more. Cristine sat in the eerie silence that followed the exorcism, her breaths shallow and her body trembling from exhaustion. The ritual had taken everything out of her. Her strength, her courage, her very soul seemed worn thin. Beside her, Gabriel remained motionless, his gaze distant and blank, as if the gravity of what had just happened hadn't quite registered yet. Jasmine was gone. At least, that's what they wanted to believe. But Cristine felt it, that faint whisper that still lingered in the air, like a wisp of cold wind brushing past her ear. A whisper of Jasmine's voice, faint but unmistakable. "You can't escape me." Her blood ran cold, and her heart pounded against her chest as she looked up, scanning the horizon. The clouds overhead had parted slightly, revealing thin streaks of moonlight. But even the moon seemed hesitant, barely casting light on the scene, as if afraid of what lay beneath the surface. Gabriel stood, his movements slow and stiff, his face a mask of exhaustion and uncertainty. "It's over," he whispered, more to himself than to her. "We did it." Cristine wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that the nightmare was finally behind them, that Jasmine had been banished, that they could return to a life free of fear and hauntings. But something in the air felt wrong. There was no relief, no sense of victory. Instead, it was as if the world held its breath, waiting for something worse to emerge. She slowly rose to her feet, glancing at the circle where they had summoned the souls. The once writhing, tormented spirits were now gone, released from Jasmine's grasp. The space around them should have felt lighter, less oppressive. But the dark energy remained. Cristine felt it in her bones, the cold prickling at the back of her neck, the weight pressing against her chest. It was as though the darkness itself had seeped into the very earth, lingering long after Jasmine's form had been torn apart. "Gabriel." Her voice was shaky, her hands trembling as she reached for his arm. "Something's not right." He looked at her, frowning, his expression clouded with confusion. "What do you mean? Jasmine's gone." Cristine shook her head. "No, I can still feel her." Gabriel's brows furrowed, and he scanned the landscape as if expecting to see Jasmine's ghost materializing in front of them. But there was nothing, just the quiet remnants of the ruined mansion and the faint rustle of wind through the trees. "You're just exhausted," he said gently, though his voice lacked conviction. "The ritual was intense. You need to rest." But Cristine knew better. She wasn't imagining this. The darkness that had surrounded them during the ritual hadn't dissipated. It had merely receded, watching, waiting. Jasmine's voice had been clear, even if it had come as a whisper. "I don't think we're done," Cristine whispered, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and realization. Jasmine wasn't just bound to the mansion. She's tied to something deeper. She's still here. Gabriel opened his mouth to respond, but before he could speak, a sudden gust of wind tore through the trees, sending a chill down their spines. The temperature dropped abruptly, and the once still night seemed to awaken with an unnatural energy. And then, they heard it. A soft, melodic hum floated through the air, chilling in its sweetness, the kind of sound that made the hairs on the back of Cristine's neck stand on end. The tune was faint but unmistakable, a lullaby, one that echoed through the darkness, growing louder and more insistent with each passing second. Cristine's heart slammed against her chest as she spun around, searching for the source. "Do you hear that?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Gabriel nodded, his face pale. "Where's it coming from?" The two stood frozen, listening as the lullaby wrapped around them like tendrils of fog. The sound seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was impossible to tell whether it was being carried by the wind or emerging from the very ground beneath them. Suddenly, Gabriel's eyes widened, and he grabbed Cristine's arm. "Look!" She followed his gaze, her breath catching in her throat. At the far edge of the ruins, just beyond the circle where they had performed the ritual, a figure stood. Jasmine. But she wasn't the same twisted, vengeful spirit they had battled before. This time, she appeared almost serene. Her long, flowing hair moved gently with the breeze, and her face was softened, as if free from the anger and malice that had once defined her. Cristine blinked, unsure if her eyes were playing tricks on her. Could this be real? Had the ritual somehow transformed Jasmine into something else, something less monstrous? But then Jasmine smiled, a slow, deliberate smile that sent ice coursing through Cristine's veins. There was no kindness in that smile, only a cold, calculating emptiness. Her eyes, though calm on the surface, were pools of malevolence, gleaming with the promise of torment. The lullaby grew louder, more distorted, as Jasmine began to move closer. Her steps were slow, deliberate, as if she had all the time in the world. Cristine stumbled backward, her mind racing. No, this can't be happening. We destroyed her. Jasmine's laughter rang out, soft and mocking. "Did you really think it would be that easy?" she purred, her voice lilting and cruel. "You may have destroyed the mansion, but you didn't destroy me." Cristine's pulse raced as Jasmine continued to approach. There was a surreal quality to her movements, like she was floating rather than walking, her form flickering in and out of focus. And with every step she took, the world around them seemed to darken further, as though Jasmine's presence was drawing all the light from the sky. "You bound me to the mansion," Jasmine continued, her voice echoing in the cold night air. "But I was never truly tied to that place. I'm bound to you, Cristine, to your fear, your pain, your heart." Cristine's breath caught in her throat, her mind reeling. Bound to her heart? What did Jasmine mean by that? Gabriel moved protectively in front of Cristine, his jaw clenched in determination. "We won't let you hurt her," he growled. Jasmine's smile widened, a twisted mockery of affection. "Oh, Gabriel, you still don't understand, do you? This isn't about hurting Cristine. It's about becoming one with her." Cristine's knees buckled, and she clutched Gabriel's arm for support. Her heart pounded in her chest as the weight of Jasmine's words sank in. Jasmine wasn't trying to destroy her. She wanted to possess her, to become a part of her. Suddenly, the lullaby grew deafening, and Jasmine's form flickered again, distorting into a dark, swirling mass of shadows. The wind howled around them, whipping through the ruins as the ground began to tremble beneath their feet. "Cristine," Gabriel shouted, pulling her toward the circle they had drawn for the ritual. "We need to get back inside the circle." But before they could move, a blinding flash of light erupted from Jasmine's form, and everything went black. Cristine woke to find herself lying on the cold, hard ground, her head throbbing. The air was still, unnervingly quiet. For a moment, she wasn't sure where she was, or if she was still alive. Then, she remembered. Jasmine, the flash of light, the darkness. She sat up quickly, her heart racing as she looked around. Gabriel was beside her, unconscious but breathing. The circle they had drawn for the ritual was still intact, but the energy surrounding it felt wrong, tainted, like Jasmine had seeped into the very ground beneath it. Cristine reached for Gabriel, shaking him gently. "Gabriel, wake up!" He groaned, his eyes fluttering open. "Cristine, what happened?" Before she could answer, the familiar voice echoed through the stillness, sending chills down Cristine's spine. "I told you, you can't escape me." Jasmine was still there, lurking just beyond the veil of reality, waiting, watching. And Cristine knew, with a terrifying certainty, that the worst was yet to come. Cristine helped Gabriel to his feet, her heart pounding in her chest. Jasmine's voice echoed in the air, but this time, it felt different, closer, more invasive. The cold night seemed to thicken with a tangible darkness, pressing down on them like an invisible weight. They had believed the nightmare would end with the destruction of the mansion, but Jasmine had found a way to tether herself not just to that cursed place, but to Cristine herself. It wasn't just her spirit haunting them. It was something far more sinister, something tied to the very essence of Cristine's being. "Cristine," Gabriel whispered, his voice hoarse, "we need to find a way out of here." But Cristine could barely focus on his words. The truth was becoming clearer with each passing second. Jasmine was bound to her. The finality of it sank in like ice into her veins. This wasn't a haunting that could be vanquished with rituals or exorcisms. Jasmine had latched onto Cristine's soul, feeding off her fear, her guilt, her pain. She wanted more than just revenge. She wanted to consume Cristine. As they stumbled through the overgrown ruins of the mansion, the dark tendrils of Jasmine's presence grew thicker. The trees seemed to close in around them, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal hands. Shadows slithered across the ground, moving unnaturally fast, as if they had minds of their own. The air grew colder, each breath turning into a puff of mist. They reached the clearing where their car was parked, but as Gabriel tried to start the engine, it sputtered and died. He cursed under his breath, frantically turning the key in the ignition, but the vehicle refused to come to life. Cristine, her pulse racing, glanced around the clearing, her senses on high alert. She knew Jasmine was close, too close. "We can't stay here," she whispered, her voice shaking. "We have to run." Gabriel nodded, abandoning the car. They bolted toward the forest, their feet pounding against the earth as the wind whipped around them, howling like a living creature. Cristine's heart raced with every step, the cold seeping into her bones. She could feel Jasmine's presence getting stronger, the darkness tightening around her like a noose. As they ran deeper into the forest, the trees seemed to shift and twist, forming a labyrinth of shadows. Every step they took seemed to bring them back to the same spot. They were trapped, caught in the web of Jasmine's dark magic. "Cristine," Gabriel shouted, his voice barely audible over the wind. "We need to stop. We can't keep running in circles." Panting, Cristine came to a halt, her lungs burning from the effort. She could feel Jasmine's malevolent energy closing in, like a predator stalking its prey. There was no escaping her. Not this time. "I don't know what to do," Cristine gasped, clutching Gabriel's arm. "She's everywhere." Gabriel's expression hardened. "There has to be something we missed. Some way to sever the connection between you and Jasmine." Cristine's mind raced, but every possible solution seemed futile. How could they break a bond that was now part of her very soul? Then, it hit her. "The necklace," she whispered, her hand instinctively reaching for the silver chain around her neck. It had been a gift from her grandmother, a family heirloom passed down through generations. She had worn it since she was a child, never taking it off. Her grandmother had told her it was for protection against the unseen forces of the world. Cristine had never thought much about it, But now, with Jasmine's voice creeping into her thoughts, she realized that maybe the necklace was more than just a sentimental trinket. She tore it from her neck, the delicate chain snapping easily in her hands. Gabriel looked at her in confusion. "What are you doing?" "I think this is what's binding her to me," Cristine said, her voice trembling. "I've had it since the hauntings started. Jasmine has been using it to keep me close to her." Before Gabriel could protest, Cristine hurled the necklace into the darkness. It disappeared into the shadows, and for a moment, everything was still. Then, the ground beneath them shuddered, and a bone-chilling scream pierced the air. Jasmine's voice erupted from all around them, a howl of fury and pain. The trees bent and twisted as if writhing in agony, and the wind roared louder than ever. Cristine dropped to her knees, clutching her head as Jasmine's scream tore through her mind. The pain was unbearable, like shards of glass slicing through her skull. She could feel Jasmine's presence unraveling, her hold on Cristine's soul weakening. But Jasmine wasn't going down without a fight. "You think you can break free?" Jasmine's voice hissed, her tone dripping with venom. "You are mine, Cristine. You've always been mine." Cristine gritted her teeth, tears streaming down her face. "No, I'm not." With one final scream, the darkness around them erupted in a violent burst of energy. The trees snapped back into place, and the wind ceased, leaving an oppressive silence in its wake. Cristine collapsed onto the ground, her body trembling from exhaustion and the aftermath of Jasmine's wrath. Gabriel was beside her in an instant, pulling her into his arms. "It's over," he whispered, though his voice held a note of uncertainty. Cristine wanted to believe him, but the silence was too heavy, too ominous. She could still feel Jasmine's presence, lingering in the air like a distant echo. As they sat there, huddled together in the cold darkness, Cristine realized the truth. Jasmine might have been weakened, her hold on Cristine's soul severed, but she wasn't gone. Not completely. The necklace had been a conduit, a way for Jasmine to latch onto Cristine, but it wasn't the source of her power. That power came from something much deeper, something connected to the house, the curse, and the unresolved pain that had tied Jasmine to the mortal world in the first place. Cristine knew that as long as Jasmine's pain remained, she would never truly be free. Weeks passed, and life slowly returned to normal. Cristine and Gabriel moved far from the town, far from the ruins of the mansion and the nightmares that had plagued them. The cold grip of fear gradually loosened, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Cristine was able to breathe again. But late at night, when the world was quiet and the shadows were long, Cristine would still hear it, a faint whisper on the wind, carried through the trees. "You can't escape me." Cristine would close her eyes and tell herself it wasn't real, that Jasmine was gone. But deep down, she knew the truth. Some ghosts never leave, and some bonds can never be broken. Though Jasmine's presence had faded, it wasn't the end. Cristine would always carry a part of her, an indelible mark left by the darkness they had shared. The horrors may have been behind her, but they would forever cast a shadow over her future. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the story. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more delightful stories.